When it came to designing Star Wars toys, Kenner was given a lot of photos from Lucasfilm. Except for one thing, they had to use their own imagination to make. Let's talk about it. What are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about the toy that Kenner had to design mostly on their own. They had a little clue of what it might look like, but overall, they didn't get anything from Lucasfilm or anyone else to say, hey, this is what you should base the Star Wars toy on. And I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Talking about this little guy right here. The Trash Monster came free inside the Kenner Death Star playset. A nice little addition to the playset. It was a great playset on its own, but having this little guy just kind of made it a lot more fun. Kenner wanted just something extra for kids to get excited about than the massive, tall, elevator action playset. And that was this, the Trash Monster alien that lived inside the Death Star trash compactor. Lucasfilm really didn't know what this monster was going to look like. After all we see in the film is the eye pop out of the water. So other than having an eye that popped out of the water, Kenner had nothing to go on. Lucasfilm had nothing either. It's not like they did concept work for the Trash Monster before making Star Wars. All they knew is that when they made this figure, it had to have something that looked like an eye that popped out of the water. What the Trash Monster would look like? Well, that was left up to Kenner designer Tim Effler to come up with concept art of what he thought the Trash Monster would look like under all that trash. But even with concept to go on, they still needed a sculptor to sculpt it from concept to a figure. And for that, they reached out to a new Kenner hire. That new hire was Steve Geddes. Steve came to Kenner in October of 1977, well after the first 12 Star Wars figures were done being designed, and work for Series 2 was about to start up. However, Kenner's head of sculpting, John Garner, wanted to make sure Steve was up to the task for Series 2 by testing his skills with the Trash Monster. So Steven took the concept art and sculpted the best Trash Monster that he could. He would then take it to his boss, who would point out failures and send it back to Steven for more work. This went on for 14 days, something that shouldn't have taken more than a day or two. As Steve was working on the monster, he would hold it so long that it would wear off the bumps and the warts on the creature, so Steve would find himself starting over again. And his boss really wanted to make sure the bumps and the warts or whatever's all over this thing really showed up. He wanted kids to feel they got something extra, not just something cheap and thrown in the last minute. He wanted some detail done to the Trash Monster, and he got it. Steve never gave up. He worked and worked to give his new Kenner boss the Trash Monster that he wanted. The first prototype of the Trash Monster was actually painted, but to save costs, the painting was axed as it was cheaper just to make it all green. After 6 weeks, Kenner was happy with the Trash Monster, but rumors are one person wasn't happy, and that was George Lucas himself, who always imagined the Trash Monster to be something a little bit more menacing, something a little bit bigger, something more than some kind of weird-looking Loch Ness monster. But all that really mattered was that Kenner was happy with Steve's work. Kenner went on to stay with the Kenner Star Wars team and other Kenner toy lines for years to come. But there was times Steven gave the bosses at Kenner a headache. Steven loved to try to hide things into the toys he were designing. He actually tried to put his face on a tree trunk with the Star Wars Dagobah playset, but those Kenner bosses found it and told him to get rid of it. But some things did get by the Kenner bosses. On that same Star Wars playset, he was able to hide his daughter's name, Emily, on the back of a lizard and a snake. And his wife, Lynn, her name can be found on the playset also. And even Steven's last name, Gittison, can be found on the playset. He even carved his last name into the tail of a tauntaun. That's right, the Kenner tauntaun, if you look at the tail closely, that last name is carved into the tail, as you can see here looking at the picture. But honestly, it's kind of hard to tell. And who knows, Steven probably hid more things in the Star Wars and other toys that just hadn't even been found yet. So if you get bored, take your Star Wars toy and really dig into it. Really look at it real close, because you never know what you're going to see. But that's the story of the Star Wars toy the Kenner designers had to design all on their own with no help from Lucasfilm. Well, I want to thank you for watching. As always, thumb up so you like my content. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk again soon.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.